Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So this week is a double Parsha. Matos-Masei. Racha, can you see me? Or will you just hear me? Malka, can you see me or hear me?
Just hear you. I don't see you.
I don't know why that is. I'm not doing to hide myself here.
But what I realize is those of us on Zoom have to provide our own refreshments.
You can come. It's free. You can come anytime. You're always welcome. You can stay by us, Malka.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you.
Jewish Journal, the editor wrote an article that last week or this week that he went to the state movie at the park in the mall, and he was happy that he had difficulty finding a space because that means people are out and going to places in person and
Right.
engaging.
Oh, Rabbi Czapnik, I cannot see you.
Yeah, I can't see me either. I mean,
Okay.
if I look into the mirror, but I don't know why. All right. I don't know what the issue is.
Want to Culver City?
No, it's
Maybe it's one of the hills, I think.
next to Westward. Westward Boulevard and People, Olympic. That was closed.
But I thought that was never open.
But they just closed it.
They were just in the process of selling all stuff. So those malls are dinosaurs.
Okay. All right.
Never connection.
That's not.
They took all the movie theaters away. It had 14 movies.
Okay. We interrupt this conversation. I don't know why I can't get my view on it, but it is what it is. As long as you can hear me. Okay. So this week is the last two portions in Chumash Bamidbar. It's Matos and Masei. Those are the last two portions. And when we finish Chumash Bamidbar, the book of Bamidbar, we're going to say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazak. We stand up in shul and we, as the last verse is being read, and we say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazak. We should be strengthened to finish and complete many other Torah books. The Haftorah, the book reading from the book of prophets, is related to the 3 weeks of mourning, not related to the portion of the week. We are having a class next Sunday night on the laws and customs of it at 6 o'clock. So Parshas Matos tells us important about the idea of the power of words. The Parsha begins with the laws of vows. Vows are promises that people make, and we take that very seriously. In Judaism, we don't believe sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never harm me. That's not true. Words can have terrible effect. So the negative power of speaking badly about other people, that's lashon hara, or telling other people what other people have said, or bullying. These are all bad things that can be from words, but words also have a great positive power of prayer, words of encouragement and compliments. These things can make a world of a difference as well. Now, vows are something that we're not crazy about. The Torah is not happy about it. It's better not to make vows, and it's a terrible sin to transgress a vow. If a person makes a promise, that's a bad thing. And definitely don't make vows on trivial matters. Don't make a vow unless you're sure you can keep it. Vows can be helpful to stop a bad habit or to motivate you to do something good. or in times of distress, in the merit of taking this vow, you want to be saved. But ideally, we should try to avoid saying, making any vows. If a person makes a vow, can it be nullified? The answer is yes. It can be nullified. As a matter of fact, Kol Nidre, the very warm, impassioned prayer that begins Yom Kippur, is about really nullification of vows. But officially, to nullify a vow, it depends on the circumstances. One can go to a scholar or to 3 laymen. And if a person doesn't realize the consequences of the vow that they made, then they can nullify it that way. Also, you can't make a vow against what the Torah says, because we're tied to the Torah first. So if a person says, oh, I'm not going to give charity, makes a vow, he's not going to give charity. I'm not going to eat matzah on Pesach. The vow is meaningless because you can't vow against something that it says in the Torah. And this, by the way, is very important because a person sometimes will say in their will, oh, they want to be cremated. By Jewish law, we don't listen to them because that's against Jewish law. Yes.
I wonder if secular law, at least in the United States, is that you can't waive a right that you have by law. So if somebody has I don't know, right to own certain property, you can't waive it by contract or if the government grants. So I wonder if that's.
I don't know. Could be. A father can nullify a child, and a husband can nullify a wife if it's related to him, but only on the day he hears about it. But again, going back to the cremation one, the fact that someone made right in their will that they want to do something wrong, we don't have to listen to that because that's their will. Yeah, but if the will is against the Torah, we try to talk the family out of doing what the person wanted. I had a funny story many years ago where a woman told me that her mother said she wants to be cremated. So I said, why? I said, she's afraid she's going to be buried alive. So I said, so being burnt in a fire alive is better? Tell her, I guarantee if she's going to have a burial, I'll shoot into the coffin. She won't be alive when she's being buried. I don't get it. But
Well, one case in Mexico, I think. The donkey there declared the woman.
dead, then she wasn't really dead, yes. But be that as it may, so then I said to the woman, is it possible your mother would be willing? And I didn't finish the sentence. She says, and no, she said she does not want to talk to Rabbi Czapnik. Okay, that's that.
But once she's gone, the daughter could.
Well, if she's the only player, she can do that, but not all the time is the religious daughter the only player. That's the problem. So before we move on, I do want to mention about the power of words. I do want to mention something we talked about last week, and we talked about Parshas Pinchas being strong in your convictions. And I said a beautiful story that I want to share with you on Shabbos morning about a boy named Oliver Ferber, a 16-year-old secular Jewish boy who was a cross-country runner for his secular Jewish school. And he decided that he didn't want to run on Shabbos. It was the major race that they were entering was on Shabbos, and he decided he's not. And he got tremendous pressure from his mother. His mother said, go, if you win. He was a very good runner. If you win, it'll be, you'll sanctify, the Jewish people because your Jewish school wins. And the school, his classmates were very much, if you want plain water, this water here. Okay. And he was under tremendous pressure, but he didn't buckle, and it was hard for him. He cried. It was challenging. But be that as it may, what I call, he had a Pinchas attitude. He was able to resist the pressure and did not run on Shabbos. And when his team won, they shunned him because he wasn't part of the winning team. But he wrote a very impassioned letter for the next year, for 2022, and they changed the date. They was able to run on Sunday, and he helped their team win the second gold medal on the second year. But it just, to me, was like a very powerful idea of here. He felt tremendous pressure internally and externally from family and friends about running on Shabbos, and he had the inner strength to be able to do the right thing, which is not always easy.
Students growing up, I can't imagine that pressure he did, yeah. I mean, high school students, like, they would just destroy him.
Right, but he held his own. It actually was an ESPN video, an article that they wrote about, and the title of it is "Running on Faith." It was a great title. You know,
I have a friend like,
what?
I have a friend, son was in public school, the teachers are coming Saturday, we can do the play. So the parents said, okay, we do 1 week on Saturday, next week on Sunday. The teacher said, no, I gotta go to church, and they said, we gotta go in temple, synagogue
Right.
on Saturday, so it never happened.
Yep. But that's it's a nice story. And it took strength, takes a lot of strength for a kid to be able to do that. And it awoke with him his exploring Judaism more, which is very nice. He's doing some more learning now. It's great. All right. I want to share a story with you about the importance of a word. There was a doctor that I was close to here at JLE who was looking actually to get married. He was having a hard time finding a match here and is thinking of going to New York. And he worked at Cedar Sinai, the hospital here. And he decided to move to New York for dating purposes. And he applied to a New York hospital, and they very much liked him and wanted to hire him, give him a nice position. And they were even speaking to people that he would want to bring to help out, to join him. And Cedars knew he was looking. They didn't say anything. And at the last minute, Cedars woke up and said, okay, we want you to stay. We'll give you a raise. We'll give you this. We'll give you that. And he called me. Says, what should I do? I did not sign a contract with the New York hospital. But it's a serious offer. And they are talking to people that I want to bring in. And I said to him, look, I'm not saying that you're required to go there, but I think you gave your word and they're seriously negotiating with people under you. That means that they're very serious about having you. I think you should go. And he started to laugh. I said, why are you laughing? He says, because the doctors and Cedars that I'm talking to who make a lot of money, they say, no, stay with the money. The rabbi is not making a lot of money. He says, no, go to the other place. And he ended up moving and taking the position in New York. And he met a girl from LA there. And that's who he married. So it's very cute. It was very, very sweet story. Years ago, the diamond industry, the way you did business was no contracts. Something called mazel ubracha, which means, for lack of a better translation, good mazel, good luck. It's not really luck, but and bracha, blessing, and that's how you on a handshake, and that's how deals were done. It was really very special, very amazing. So that was a legal commitment you could have. Now, Parsha continues and deals with that Hashem wanted Moshe to make sure that the Jewish people fight against Midian. The Midianites were the women that enticed the men and were saved ultimately only because many died because of the plague, but were saved ultimately because of Pinchas. And this is again a very important idea, because the vengeance is not because not only the deaths they cause, because of the spiritual deaths they cause, because physical death is one thing, spiritual death is much worse. The Art School has a nice piece on the bottom of page 903 in the Art Scroll. I'll just read it to you if you don't have it in front of you. It's chapter 31, verse 1. Actually, verse 2 as well. God spoke of avenging the harm had been done to Israel, but in the next verse, when Moses conveys the commandment to the Jews, he spoke only of avenging the slight of God's honor, where he said, had we been idolaters, they would not hate or persecute us. Therefore, the vengeance is for God. Rashi comments, the one who wrongs Israel is regarded as one who wrongs God. So it's not about just the vengeance physical, it's about the spiritual. Now what's going to happen is after this, Moshe is going to die. So guess how fast Moshe should be interested in take a look at the very top of the words on page 905. Afterwards, you will be gathered unto your people. What does that mean, gathered unto your people? So hold on to the place here, if you have the Chumash, and go all the way back to page 121 in the Chumash, dealing with the matriarchs and patriarchs. Verse 121, verse 8. So what does gathered unto your people mean? Before you go there, anyone know? What's God saying? After you fight with Midian, then you're going to be gathered unto your people. What does that mean? You're going to die. But take a look at verse 121, verse 8. And Avram expired and died at a good old age, mature, continue on to 123, and content, and he was gathered to his people. What does that mean? Can't mean dying, because it says already he died. Does everyone understand my question? I'll say it again. Verse 8 on page 121, and Avram expired and died at a good old age, mature and content, and he was gathered to his people. So gathering to the people can't mean just dying. What does it mean? We need the Jeopardy music. What it means is that the soul is gathered to the other souls. It's it's a text, a proof of the idea of the soul lives on after a person passes away. Because the verse that I showed you on page 121 is clearly saying that Avram died, and then afterwards it says he's gathered onto his people. So when we're talking here about gathering onto the people, we don't only mean just death, we mean the souls coming together for after a person passes away. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Hello? Yeah, okay. And this is really not such a surprise, because there's a lot of research now about out-of-body experiences, about people who left their bodies, came back in. A lot of fascinating stories about this. There's one story about a woman who saw clips of different religions and was moved when she saw a Hasidic man praying at the Western Wall. She wasn't Jewish. And she never was exposed to Judaism, but it moved her. And the parents were shocked and told her that your dad isn't Jewish, but your mother is. And that started her journey back to Judaism because she saw an image that somehow spoke to her, even though she was never, ever exposed to it. But there is a connection to the soul. There's another Holocaust story, a wild story about a woman who was killed by her German doctor after the Holocaust. And she had an out-of-body experience, and the nurse came in and said, "What are you, crazy? We're all going to get in trouble. The Americans, the British, whoever was there then are going to get us into trouble." And they did what they could, and they miraculously revived her. But she saw and heard the conversation. And she was able to go to I think it was the American authorities, and repeat the conversation. And the doctor had to admit it because he thought the nurse said something, but really was she heard the conversation from when she left her body. She was able to see what happened. It was very fascinating.
Rabbi Zavner,
Yes, Michael.
Michael Ginsberg, hi. Yeah, a lot of people, well, they're talking about the people who are the Israelites, the 10 lost tribes, and they feel as though they have a calling to Israel. Some people, they just feel gravitating towards Israel, and they love Israel, but they don't know why. They don't have the history of the Jewish family descent, but they think that long ago they were part of the 10 lost tribes. And it's been
And that I can't tell you. I don't know if they are or not. So that's a toughie.
Yeah, it's been established that those tribes did move up to Europe, and they formed, Denmark, the tribe of Dan, the Danube
I don't
River.
know. I can't say. I don't know. It's hard
I
to
know
know.
you don't know, but I'm just saying a lot of the words come from the tribes of Israel. The country, Great Britain. What does Brit mean? Brit means covenant, right?
It could be. And maybe
So-
you may be right. I don't know.
Anyway, a lot of people are feeling that way, and it's on the internet, and they're talking about it, and so it's happening. So you brought it up, so I just thought.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. So Moshe is going to pass away at the end of this battle with Midian. Now, what would we do? Okay, wait, Hashem, I can't do battle yet. Let's do an environmental impact study. What's the war going to cause? Take a few years research on that before we do it. But that's not Moshe. Moshe didn't avoid it. Moshe goes full force. Why? Because his life goes to do what Hashem says, what Hashem wants, what God wants. That's his life's mission. The Jewish people hesitate, but what happens is there's going to be different aspects. There's going to be 1,000 soldiers from each tribe, total of 12,000 soldiers. And what are the Jewish people going to do? The rest of the Jewish people are going to pray. And that's a very important component. We can't minimize the importance of the spiritual component in defeating our enemies. Yes, we should have the best army and the best intelligence and the best weapons, but the bottom line is that we need the spiritual component. Yeah.
Isn't that when King David stopped going into the field with his army? He would stay back, fast and pray. When the army thought they were winning because they were so strong.
Well, it's a combination. And yes, the spirituality is really a thing. When in the Gaza war in 2014, on a Tel Aviv building, which was in the line of in the flight plan of the Israeli jets, they wrote in big letters on the building, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Here is all, God is one. To encourage it. When people went into Gaza, there were religious kids who sent cookies and cakes, and they said, "Please make a blessing before you eat it." And it's the spiritual component is very important. Interestingly enough, Moshe is not the one who leads them into battle. Why not? Because Moshe has a Karsa Tov to Midian. He had hung out there because he had gone to Yisro, his father-in-law, Midian, who was in Midian. So out of recognition of the good, he didn't go to lead the battle against them. in spite of how bad Midian was, at the same time, he personally had a debt of gratitude. They hosted him, so to speak. So who gets to lead? Pinchas. Why Pinchas? Because the Gemara says a beautiful statement, Hamaschel b'mitzvah oimim lo gemar. Whoever starts doing a mitzvah, we tell him, finish the mitzvah. So what mitzvah did Pinchas start? He killed the Jew and the Midianite woman, right? Cosby and Zimri. And so now he's given the job to finish it. The Medrash says that they went with the ark, the holy ark. Why did they go with the holy ark? Because just in case Bilam's going to try to use some black magic, they'll have the ark to help them counter any black magic that may exist. But he doesn't get the princes of each tribe to lead each tribe. Why not? Interesting answer. Which tribe was missing a prince? Shimon. Excellent. Good, Steve. That's right. Why was Shimon missing its prince? Pinchas had killed him, right? So he's going to say, okay, let's get all the princes of each tribe, because there's 1,000 of each tribe. You'd think the prince would lead, but he didn't want to embarrass Shimon for not having a prince yet. He had appointed a new prince, so he doesn't say anything and doesn't have the princes lead, because he didn't, to save the tribe of Shimon the embarrassment. It's a very beautiful idea. Miraculously, none of the Jews were killed in battle, but Bilam was killed. So what happened was Bilam tried to switch and use the Jewish people's methodology by using words to curse the Jewish people, and the Jewish people used the sword. They switched methods and said, no, we're going to use your methodology. We're going to kill you with the sword. And they killed him with the sword. But what happens is, the Jewish people come back and they bring some spoils of war, and Moshe is not happy. Why is he not happy? He says, you're bringing the women as spoils of war. They're the ones who made the problem. And he gets angry at them, and that wasn't good, but he gets upset. But Moshe was right, but he shouldn't have gotten upset. Because of that, he forgot laws. This beautiful story of El Lapian. He wanted to rebuke one of his students, one of his children, and he waited 2 weeks till he calmed down, not to say something impulsively out of anger. He wanted to do it the right way. Torah has a high standard for us. And the question is, why was Moshe upset? He's really afraid that they're going to sin again with the women? They learned the lesson the hard way. There's a plague and Pinchas killed this, but that's a very important idea. Jews are not perfect. There are no guarantees. There's no righteous pills to take. The only guarantees in the world are death and taxes. Those are the only two guarantees. We have no other guarantees. A person needs to know that we have to do the best that we can, not to put ourselves in a place of temptation, because we all have the potential to make mistakes. The Torah also gives us some laws here about how to make things kosher, to make things kosher. If something is not food, I'm talking about vessels. You can't kosher all vessels, but how to do it depends. If it's metal, you don't use it for 24 hours, you have to clean it. It depends if we used for the way the thing went in, it comes out. In other words, you can if you use it for, let's say, use a dairy spoon, a meat spoon for a coffee with milk. So then you clean it, wait 24 hours, and then you can put it into hot water because that's the same how it went in.
Only for food related utensils, right? Not tools or.
Well, tools don't have to be kosher because unless you use a wrench to eat with, but generally not. Right, it's food, right? What? A knife? It depends. If a knife should be kosher. If it was used for non-kosher food, then you have to kosher it. Interestingly enough, the booty was shared with the people who prayed for them, because even though they were the ones in danger, they miraculously survived, but the ones who prayed for them are an important component of it.
Should they have prescribed everybody?
Should they have what?
Does he think they should just, they should slaughter everybody?
It depends who. It depends who. Again, so what ends up happening is the ones that sinned were the ones that were killed. The ones that weren't sinned weren't killed.
Because there's been battles where they said like, leave nobody's.
Well, it depends who. That has to be on the nations in Israel. That's complicated. It depends on the circumstances. Take a look in chapter 32 on page 911 in your art scroll. So what happens is the tribe of Reuven and Gad had a lot of livestock, and they went to Moshe and they said, we would like to not go into the land of Israel, but be on the eastern border of the Jordan River, not to cross it, so that we have a place to live there. And Moshe says, what, you're not going to join the Jewish people in battle to take over the land of Israel? And they clarify, say, no. We of course we're going to do that. We're going to join in the battle. And what we're going to do is we'll make pens for our animals and cities for our small children. Then we'll arm ourselves, and then we'll go into and fight the battle for the rest of the Jewish people in the heartland of Israel. So they said, okay. Now, interestingly enough, what happens here? Moshe is criticizing them. Do they get insulted? No. A wise person wants to hear the truth. A wise person wants to know what the right thing to do is. But interestingly enough, you'll notice a difference between verse 16 and verse 24. They approached him and said, pens for the flock shall we build here for our livestock, and cities for our small children. But Moshe said, if you're going to go in, build for yourself cities for your small children and pens for your flock. Moshe switches the order. Why does Moshe switch the order?
Those are more important.
The children are more important. That's right. Don't talk about a place for the livestock first. Talk about a place for the kids. That's what's important. So it's, again, always important to think about not where's the most beautiful place to live, but where's going to be a good place for them. As the old expression goes, no one on their deathbed says, I should have spent more time at the office, right? Spend more time with kids, done better. That's important. Before we get into next week's the other Parshat Matos, I do want to share something else very interesting. At the very end of Matos,
One question, did ever say that they should have stayed, they should have went to Israel, or they?
I'm sorry?
The commentators ever say that they were wrong for not going to Israel?
There are different opinions about it. It is something that's discussed. But they wanted to make that the holiness of Israel should transfer to where they were as well. So it wasn't totally wrong. The last verse in the portion says, in the art scroll, I'll tell you in a second. (9:17). Mhm. What? Oh, yes, actually, I do have a paper. I didn't give it out. Thank you for asking.
You got next week's too?
No, I don't have next week's here too. You can call the office and get it in the office.
Maybe next week, maybe? Fine. Yeah, great, so happy.
Here we do one from Massey and one from that. What? We can? No. I don't know. I'm not entirely we can. And we just let them use. Why? Huh? Okay. I think. So in the end, it says that Novach went and captured Kinoth and this other cities, and he called the place Novach. He didn't have any of his own children. No, that was Chavasir, I'm sorry. But Novach decided to name the cities after himself. And Reb Samson Fol Hirsch, whose brilliance and insights are amazing, says the following insight. Does this perhaps express a slight reprehension of such procedure to find a memorial in bricks and stone to immortalize oneself, an earthly immortalization which the Jew should seek and find solely through great deeds of spiritual and moral faithfulness to do through the whole content of noble life? We don't immortalize ourselves through putting our names on buildings or naming a city after ourselves. Yes, some people do give money, charity for buildings, and that's very nice and encourages other people to give. But the goal isn't that I immortalize myself by my name. Naming Los Angeles Los Czapnik, that wouldn't do it. What we have to do is we immortalize ourselves through the good deeds that we do in the Torah that we study. And there's a great story of a building not too far from here at all about it was called the Daniel Murphy School on 3rd and Formosa, right in the neighborhood. And Daniel Murphy donated the money for the building and said it should not be sold to a Jew. And it was a Christian high school. And unfortunately, the Catholic Church had issues that they had to pay a lot of money for some misdeeds. So after his death, they sold it and is now a yeshiva. And here he gave this money and he had put his name, Daniel Murphy High School, and Daniel Murphy's high school is not there anymore. Now it's Or Eliyahu. It's a wonderful yeshiva.
Oh, that's great.
So, all right. So Parshas Masei, which is the last portion of Bamidbar, it has 132 verses, two positive commandments, 4 negative commandments, and it talks about the travels of the Jewish people in the desert for the 40 years that they went from Egypt to the land of Israel. And the Jewish people only traveled 42 places, which is, for 40 years, that's pretty good. It was the Almighty's kindness to the Jewish people that He took care of them for the 40 years with the manna from heaven, the be'er, the well, the divine cloud. He didn't make them move too much. And we need to look at traveling not only in the means of just where we're going to live, but what is our journey in life? That's a powerful thing to think about. What is the journey in life that we have? And it's amazing because everybody has a story. How did they get here? How did they get to a class? There's the story about an Israeli who heard a fellow Jewish soldier saying Shema Yisrael before his death. Here was all God is one, and that motivated him to take him on his journey. Years ago, we had somebody who, a non-Jew who had a Jewish roommate, and he said to him, "Hey, what's the essence of Judaism?" He said, "I don't know. I didn't learn anything about Judaism. Let's go find out." And they're walking down the street, and they're asking people, "What's the essence of Judaism?" People look at them like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes over to one person and he says, "What's the essence of Judaism?" He says, well, the essence wasn't going well. It says, "You have a synagogue?" He says, "Yeah." And the boy he happened to meet was my son, and he brought him to the JLE. And he comes to the JLE, sits down, and we had a guest speaker from Rabbi Avrohom Miller, who lives in Mexico, and he's getting up to speak. And what is his first words out of his mouth? "I was driving in a taxi in Mexico, and the taxi driver pulls over to the side of the road and turns around and says to me, 'What's the essence of Judaism?'" Amazing story. And that's what he spoke about. And what he said was the essence is the study of Torah, doing the service of God and the acts of loving kindness. But imagine the man's walking on the street, is trying to talk to people, get the essence of Judaism, doesn't get any answers. He starts to ask for synagogues, doesn't get answers. He happens to meet my son, who takes him to JLE, and the rabbi who's speaking exactly on the topic that he wanted to know about. He came from Mexico, and the taxi driver stopped him and asked the question. Just really, really amazing.
Did that guy keep on coming back?
He came for a while, and then I don't know. He fell out. But I don't know what happened to him afterwards. But it is we shouldn't ignore. Hashem reveals Himself sometimes to us, and we shouldn't ignore that. We should look at our journey that way. Okay, we're running out of time. We just have to remember that even when bad things happen, Hashem is the boss. It's all part of our journey. Lessons along the way. Realizing Hashem is the boss, He created it and gives, and the land is ours. He's giving the land to us. It actually belonged to Shem, and we're descendants of the Shem. So it really goes back to his descendants. But it's also a holy place. We have to live up to the standards of that. And the people there who were living there did not live up to the standards. And the land will be divided into 12 tribes, not including Levi. Levi just had cities, 48 cities, including cities of refuge. Now, what was the cities of refuge? The cities of refuge was that if a person killed someone inadvertently, it was by mistake, but he should have been more careful. The classic Talmudic example is someone is chopping wood and the blade is loose and he doesn't tighten it, and he swings the axe down and the blade flies off and a guy happens to be walking by it, boom, and goes into and kills him. So then this person has to run to a city of refuge. This is a city where he stays in until the death of the Kohen Gadol, and he's like an exile, and that protects him. None of the family can hurt him, but he has to stay in that city. So I'm going to conclude with two very interesting things. One is, how many exiles did the Jewish people have? 4 exiles. And the 4 exiles are the Babylonian exile. That was the first one that destroyed the first temple. The next one is Persia and Media. That's the story of Purim. Then the next one is Yavan, Greece. That's the Greek Assyrians. That's the Hanukkah story. And then the one we're in now is Edom, is the final Roman exile, and that's the destruction of the Second Temple and continuing on. The first words in this week's Parsha, Eila Masei B'nei Yisrael. These are the travels of the Jewish people. Eila starts with an Aleph, that stands for Edom, the exile we're in now. Masei, the travels, the Mem stands for Madai, Parasama, the Persian Media. B'nei starts with the Beis, that's Bavel, the Babylonian exile. And Yisrael, Yud stands for Yavan. So those of you on Zoom can see it a little easier. My board is occupied by the camp, but
The number 3.
the third exile was Yavan, Greece, and Edom is Rome. So the travels of the Jewish people then are also leading to what the travels of the Jewish people are going to be in the future. It's hidden in the Torah. So I want to conclude with two more points. When they had the cities of refuge, there was, interesting, in Israel, there were signs pointing to the cities of refuge, but there were no signs pointing to Jerusalem. Doesn't make much sense. City of refuge is only somebody killed somebody inadvertently. Jerusalem was used 3 times a year. They went up to the temple. Why didn't they have signs?
They knew where it was.
Nope. Because if you don't know, what are you going to do? You're going to ask. You're going to Jerusalem, we're going too. We just came back, it was unbelievable. That's what the conversation is about. City of refuge, don't ask. Look at the sign. We don't want you to talk about it even. Don't have a conversation. It's interesting. Years ago, this was in 2019, Netflix had a series called 13 Reasons Why. And it was about teenage suicide. It's a fake story. But in it, they showed wrist slitting. They were acting out that this teenage kid slit his wrist, and they showed it on this show. And there was a dramatic increase in teenagers slitting their wrists. Why? That's what they saw. That's what they were talking about. And this is the Torah was way ahead of this. And that's what said, no, it has nothing to do. It's just a mere coincidence, right? But in any event, and they got a lot of pressure to that the graphic scene should be removed. So that's a beautiful idea that the Jewish people put up signs with the cities of refuge, or don't ask, don't tell anybody what happened. You killed somebody by mistake. Don't talk about it. Just go there and keep it quiet. And Jerusalem, there's no sign. There were no signs in those days because people should ask and learn about it. And then again, the end of Chumash Bamidbar, we say Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek. May we be strengthened, and that's a beautiful thing. We should always keep on learning and growing, and never think we know it all. We don't know it all. Just make sure to keep on learning and growing, and and complete more Torah books. All right, amen. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
What is the name that you say now?
It was, let me tell you the name of that story. It was called 13 Reasons Why. 13, Mercy, Mary, 13 Reasons Why. 13 Reasons Why. Yes, thank you. Hello. Hello, Shalom Aleichem. Hello, hey, come here. Hey, hello. Shalom Aleichem. What's your name? What's your name? Simcha Cohen. What's your first name? Yosef. Very nice to meet you, Yosef. Shalom Aleichem. What's your name? Yaakov Cohen. What's your name? Hey, I know this guy. This is one of my students. How you doing, Munchkie Bunch? How are you? I didn't give the other side a tickle. It feels badly. Okay, now you both feel good. No, it's not my balloon. I can't give you that balloon. I'm sorry.
These guys are all brothers?
Yes, they are. No. It's not yours. It's not yours. It belongs to somebody else. Bye. Bye. It's attached. Okay.
Back by the kids.
Bye.
Back by the kids.
Take care, Malcolm, Michael, David. All the best. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.
Yashikov, Rabbi.
Thank you very much. Bye.